I think that what's happening in the region in general is of significance for the entire world. The instability in the region that goes back to the illegal invasion of Iraq has continued to cause greater and greater instability. And this is something that, though the KRG has been relatively peaceful in comparison to other parts of Iraq and certainly Syria, the situation in the KRG and in Iraq remains critical, and the world is watching, because it's very important that we get democracy in Iraq, a stable democracy in Iraq, as well as a stable democracy in the KRG. And I think that there are many challenges to that, of course. Well, we see, for example, the question of the persecution of the Kurdish freedom movement in Turkey is something that spills over the borders, as we've seen because of the PKK's stronghold in Kandil Mountains. This is something that directly affects Iraqi Kurdistan as well as we've seen in the course of the last year with the genocidal onslaught on Afrin and the demographic changes. That the problems of repression in Turkey is something that is not confined any longer to Turkey, and there's a longer history to that as well. But certainly at this point, the solution to the Kurdish question has to be regional in scope. It's not enough to try to solve the Kurdish question in Iraq, to try to solve the Kurdish question in Turkey, to try to solve the Kurdish question in Iran, to try to solve the Kurdish question in Syria. There has to be a regional solution to the Kurdish question. So the question of a greater Kurdistan notwithstanding, certainly there is similar problems in the different places, and there has to be international and regional cooperation towards recognizing the rights of the Kurds. I think that it's very important to look at the model of democratic confederalism that the Kurdish freedom movement, inspired by the philosophy and political vision of Abdullah Öcalan, thinking about self-determination in a way that is not necessarily striving for a state, but trying to think about democratizing things at the local level. I think this is something that has a relevance not only in Syria and not only for Turkey, but also in Iraq as well. Not only for Kurds, but also for peoples of the Middle East more generally. So I think an openness to crucially pushing for a peace process in Turkey that would release Abdullah Öcalan and get people to think about what that model means, I think is crucial for thinking about what democracy can be. And that's a kind of democracy that is the only alternative to the ongoing tyranny and chaos that is threatening peace in the KRG as well.